Hello everyone, Floppy Waffle 69 here, and welcome back to the channel, guys. Hey, today we are going to be doing a full deep dive analysis review of a Tier 8 Premium American Heavy Cruiser. This is the USS Bridgeport. This is the reward for completing the final stage of the Liberty Dockyard, or Liberty Harbor, sorry, not Dockyard, Liberty Harbor event that ends December 4th, 2025. So if you do not complete all the missions or whatever the hell building this Liberty port up, and after that date, you'll sadly won't be able to obtain this ship. But my job here is to tell you, for I'm sure most of you haven't gotten to the stage where it's even possible or plausible for you to finish it unless you theoretically purchase the last couple buildings, whatever, with doubloons. And I'm here to tell you whether or not that is worth it, or you should hang on to those doubloons and spend them somewhere else. So without further ado, guys, let's get on into this video. First thing I want to say, basically, and answer the question of what is the Bridgeport. So the Bridgeport, I believe, is an Oregon City class cruiser hull that is the same as what we have, like, for example, the Rochester, I think, is the best thing to compare this to. With that being said, there's also, I think, the Tulsa is a Oregon City class hull. So what does that tell you about the hull in general? The hull is usually weaker. I don't think the hull is as strong as like a Baltimore hull, for example. I think the Baltimore hull is just the superior hull. I find myself getting Citadel more through the nose with these types of cruisers than I do like the Baltimore, for example. But basically what this is a slight iteration on the Rochester. We drop the smokescreen, and instead we pick up a time-based main battery reload booster. Wargaming has been liking this idea ever since they teased it and implemented it with the new American DD line split with the, the Burrows. We also saw this on the smokescreen of the Laffy, and we also saw this implemented on the Sibir, which is the Tier 10 Kremlin secondary battleship, right? So now we have it here on a Tier 8 cruiser in the form of a main battery reload booster. And that might sound intriguing to a lot of players, myself included. But once I got behind the helm of this ship and started playing her, I quickly found out that I really don't like this ship. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why I don't like this ship. If I'm comparing this ship flat out to the Baltimore and the Rochester, I'm going to say I'm going to pick up both those ships instead over this vessel. So the short answer to this video is the Bridgeport worth it? In my opinion, no. If you're looking at it for solely a competitive ship to play, nah, I don't really think it's worth it. I think you'd actually have a better time playing the Baltimore, even with the Rochester, in my opinion. But if you're getting this ship for a collection kind of ship or collector ship or whatnot, yeah, it could be worth it, right? But again, and also if you're obtaining it for free, obviously, yes, it's worth it. So if you can theoretically grind all the Liberty Harbor missions and obtain this ship for free, 100% this ship's worth it, because who doesn't want a free Tier 8 premium ship that has improved credit income and you can bounce commanders to and from, train commanders, all that jazz, right? But if you're spending doubloons on this ship, no. This ship is not worth doubloons, the spending of doubloons. I can flat out tell you that right out the gates. The ship is not worth it in that regard, okay? But yes, to go back to what I was saying before, this ship is a little bit frustrating to play. You're having to deal with slow turret traverse. You're having to deal with kind of a sluggish handling. The hull itself isn't that tanky. It's just a very frustrating ship to play. And we're going to go over all the meat and potatoes of this ship here in the video in just a little bit. So like we always do with these deep dive analysis videos, we're going to start in the port screen. We're going to go over some soft stats of the ship, talk a little about her, and then we're going to go ahead and show some gameplay in her, talk about some pros and cons, and then give you my final thoughts about the ship, guys. So without further ado, let's go on into it. Starting off, we are looking at the armor layout. Now, the armor layout on a screen in regards of values doesn't look too bad, right? You have this 27mm nose, you have this 27mm ass, so that can go ahead and slug away 380mm guns. It cannot be overmatched by that. But then you look at this 27mm armor belt mixed with this 27mm deck, and the Citadel that is raised out of the water, a little bit of a step here as well. You're going to come to find out that this ship does eat a lot of citadels from large caliber armor piercing, especially you are a tier 8 cruiser, so that means you're going to be seeing tier 9 and tier 10 games a lot, and that means you have a lot of large caliber guns at those tiers, especially for battleships, that you're going to have to deal with. And again, guys, that is just not fun. I've mentioned this on my channel before. I really don't like the raw overmatch mechanic of this game. I wish it would be changed and altered a little bit, but again, I just don't see that going away anytime soon. Moving into the survivability of the ship, we are coming in at 41,900 with a 13% torpedo belt reduction. Again, numbers. HP pool's kind of meh. The torpedo belt reduction's kind of meh. You don't want to be eating torpedoes anyways, and you actually have the choice in the third slot, I believe, to either take a hydroacoustic search or a defensive AA. And I'll make an argument actually for both. You can go either way in my opinion, but more universally accepted, more universally useful is going to be that hydroacoustic search. So you might want to consider sticking with that instead of the defensive AA fire consumable, right? Going into the artillery, and these are packing 9 203mm guns. Now these do have the improved ricochet angles, I believe, which is that 60 to 68. They are reloading in a sluggish 13 seconds. That's even 2 seconds longer than the Rochester, which I believe is a 11-second reload. Let me just double check my numbers real quick. Yeah, the Rochester actually is 12 seconds, so 1 second longer, and the Baltimore actually has a quicker reload than both those ships, coming in at 10 seconds. 180-degree turn time of the ship is fucking dreadful at 30 seconds. It does suck. It is painful. I have noticed this, so keep that in mind as well. I even tried taking the, main battery modification 2 in the third slot instead of the aiming accuracy or mod or whatever, and it does help, but it leaves out that issue. But then it creates a whole nother issue, which is the lack of consistency of your shells is worsened by a large number, and it is painful. You're going to notice that you're missing a lot more of your shells, so I would just highly recommend you don't do that. You're going to have to bear with that sluggish turret traverse, which 30 seconds is pretty standard in stock for large caliber like battleships, right? But on a cruiser, man, it is painful, especially when you need to be actively maneuvering and kiting. And your armor, you cannot rely on this armor, guys, in this meta especially. It makes a kind of a meh package, right? Again, it is packing 6x2 127mm. I believe it's dual purpose secondary mounts. You do have those scattered amongst this ship as well, guys. And coming in at a 16-kilometer main battery range as well. Again, you have 2.0 Sigma, which again is standard with the other two ships we're comparing, which again is pretty standard for cruisers at this tier. Moving into the AA defense now, it is actually worth talking about the AA on this ship. Just like that of the Rochester, the Oregon City class cruisers do bring a pretty respectable AA suite. Again, when I say respectable, that doesn't mean it's going to stop CVs in their tracks. You will still get struck, you will still take damage, but it should deter CVs a little bit more and kind of limit them to hopefully one strike, especially if you take the defensive AA fire consumable and the CV is bad. Well, they will lose their entire squadron for sure because of the amount of flak you're putting up in the air, which I believe is 4+1. That also can be increased with certain skills you can take on your captain. But again, usually CVs will strike you once and then recall their squadron. They will probably lose around 3 to 6 aircraft, depending on the squadron. Again, it depends on the nation of the carrier and the carrier player too, so you have to keep those in mind. Again, your range is going out to 5.8 kilometers. Maneuverability, this is something that I do want to talk about. Yes, your speed is not bad there at 33 knots, but your turning circle radius of 750 meters is kind of lackluster, and that rudder shift time is coming in. It's definitely not 7.6. The rudder shift time, I believe, is 12.6, and the reason it's 7.6 is because I am taking that steering gears mod 3 in the 5th slot and not concealment. Moving into the concealment values, as you can see, stock it is 11.7, and on my commander it's still going to remain 11.7 based upon the build and the upgrades that I'm going to be presenting to you. I just think 11.7 is already good enough. If you do want to get specific and you do want to take an extra, commander perk. I understand that, but in regards of the upgrades, I would highly recommend you don't take the concealment modification. I think you really do need that steering gears to help mitigate a massive glaring weakness with this ship, which is its handling. So that's why I recommend you don't take that and recommend taking the steering gears modification 3. You can by all means take the concealment value or a concealment upgrade for the captain skill. I think it's going to give you down to like 10.8, 10.9-ish range, which should feel right at home for a lot of us Des Moines lovers and American heavy cruiser lovers as well. And yeah, guys, that is basically the Bridgeport from my port side analysis. The only thing we're going to talk about is I'm going to showcase you the upgrades I have slotted on the ship, and here they are as you see on your screen. Again, pretty standard. I've already talked about why I've slotted each of these. The big one I cannot stress enough is the steering gears modification 2. I would highly recommend you play the ship. Slot this upgrade if you're struggling playing the ship, because a lot of it has to do with the handling, and the handling doesn't complement the slow turret traverse, which in turn doesn't complement the slow abysmal reload of this ship. But now we should talk about the consumables of this vessel, because this is going to be the meat and potato and the bread and butter. So first I want to point out, as a tier 8 cruiser, you are picking up a heel, which is super nice for a lot of cruiser players out there, including myself. It allows you a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more durability and survivability on the battlefield. This isn't going to make up for your weakness of armor, but this is going to allow you to stay in the fight theoretically a little bit longer, especially if you know how to angle and mitigate damage incoming on you, okay? I've already mentioned in the third slot, I would highly recommend you take the hydroacoustic search over the defensive AA, but I do understand why you would slot the defensive AA fire, as I have played a couple games myself, and I do find it to be pretty damn consistent in CV games, especially when you're going against tier 6 and tier 8. Though once you get to tier 10, haha, good luck. It's probably not going to do much in those games, right? But the consumable that everyone has me talking about, what everyone's talking about basically with the ship, is the main battery reload booster. Obviously, this is time oriented, like I've already previously mentioned. So it's not you pop it and you have like 4 charges base. Superintendent gives you 5. Nuh-uh. This is time oriented, and that time is going to last you for 1 minute and 20 seconds. So use it wisely. This is going to reduce your main battery reload by 50%, which I believe 13 divided by 2 is around 6.5. And that's going to be a fairly quick reload, because if you look at your DPM values your DPM values are not very good. I believe your overall, your AP DPM is around 189,000 and your HE DPM is 114,000. Like, to put that in contrast, the Baltimore is outclassing you by 270,000 max AP DPM and 151,200 HE DPM. And like, those are good numbers, but they're nothing phenomenal, as we know. Like, that's moving more into light cruiser lines if we're getting into the 3s and 4s. But damn, like, it's still respectable, right? So you could see how much lower you are in that regard of your DPM. I mean, even the Rochester, for example, is packing 225,000. So you're not even crossing that 200,000 AP DPM mark, which again is not very good. So please, please, please understand that the meat and potatoes of your ship is going to come down to the main battery reload booster, because if you don't have this thing up, it is painfully slow, especially where you want to be playing this ship. Waiting 13 seconds plus or minus adrenaline rush helping you out, and depending on your HP pool, it doesn't feel very good. So my one big tip I have with this ship is managing your main battery reload booster, and understanding that there are going to be some scenarios that are going to be mandatory to pop this thing, and other scenarios that hopefully you can recognize that you really don't need to be popping this thing, okay? And I'll go over the captain build in the game, guys. So that is the Bridgeport. It's definitely a beautiful looking ship. I really do like the aesthetic looks of this ship, but in regards of the gameplay and what this ship gives me on the battlefield, it leaves much to be desired, okay? So without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and see what the Bridgeport can do in and on the battlefield. Okay, and here we are in battle with the USS Bridgeport. I honestly have to say this, guys, and I've already mentioned this in the port analysis, but again, some of you might just skip right to the gameplay to hear me talk a little bit about it or give us some tips and tricks of the ship. One, if you do not obtain this ship through the Liberty Harbor event, you are not missing much, okay? Basically, everything you are going to be seeing here, you could probably achieve easier in the Baltimore, okay? And probably even easier in the Rochester as well. The only thing that you are missing out on is this timed-based reload booster. And to be honest with you, I feel like for the vast majority of players, And again, this is not to shit talk. This is just a fact. This is truthful. I just think a lot of them will not know how to manage this main battery reload booster, and this main battery reload booster for them will be gone and expired by the first 5 minutes of the battle, if that. Okay. So yes, obviously you toggle the T key to turn it on and off. And there are times when you're seeing a little bit quicker salvo come out of the barrels, and that's when you go ahead and can pop it. But you don't want to just let this sit, okay? And this is going to be a great example of me trying to do it and utilize the main battery reload booster. What kind of sucks though about this situation is this fucking island is in my way. So I'm main battery reload boosting the fucking island instead of actually shooting the enemy Cleveland, which is presenting a very, very flat broadside to me, in which I could be punishing. Okay, obviously for this, I probably should have toggled off my my main battery reload booster, which I did do. Again, I think, okay, I'm going to be available to do it again, and I go ahead and nuke the island again. So this is something where you can recognize, not be like me. I'm just trying to, you know, teach you by my mistakes. This is probably one of those scenarios that you didn't have to have your main battery reload booster on, and all that shit. And again, thank you to my NC for allowing me to do a 4,000 or 2,000 damage salvo there to the Cleveland to get first blood. Hooray. Definitely was not my kill. The Cleveland or the North Carolina did the vast majority of that. But you can kind of see what I mean about managing your main battery reload booster. So that's my my first tip, but my very big tip of this ship is understanding how to manage that. Okay. The next one, you have to abuse and utilize island coverage with this ship. This is not an open water kiting cruiser, and that is vindicative based upon its slow-ass turret traverse. You will see throughout this game that the turrets turn so abysmally slow, and they're only 30 seconds, which isn't bad. And again, none of these are 360-degree turrets, by the way. They are all, you know, you have to turn around the ship, then go back around. They don't just keep swivel like the Petropavlovsk, right? You will quickly find out that these turrets turn so slow, and then your slow-ass turning circle, sometimes you'll outturn your turrets, and it's a mess. It's an absolute mess. I don't understand why Wargaming did that. Maybe they're banking on the fact that, like, hey, we want this thing to be a nose in. It has 27 millimeters of armor. Maybe they're still living under a rock, or in 2015 when 27 millimeters nose armor actually meant something. Nowadays, it doesn't mean shit. And anything, the armor holds up more likely or more so against cruisers than it does actual battleships. So that's another rule of thumb that I'm kind of starting to say in my videos is when Wargaming says, oh, the armor is actually pretty damn good, basically take that and say, okay, so it still gets absolutely nuked by enemy battleships, but against cruisers, it can kind of stand up and deal with a little bit more mitigation-wise against those cruisers, right? Of course, semi-armor piercing kind of sends it out the window, but you have to remain to stay, you know, nose in. And again, there's so many other things that ships have nowadays to deal with you. You know, airstrikes being another one, submarines with homing torpedoes. There's just a lot of stuff you have to worry about. So, but I don't want to go too much into that regard. I want to just stay solely focused on the USS Bridgeport. So we've talked about managing your main battery reload booster, right? Because it's a time-based consumable rather than just a number of charges, right? We've talked about using and abusing island coverage. Now, and the third thing I want to talk about this ship is knowing the, like, well, not knowing, basically understanding when to shoot HE and when to shoot armor piercing, because for the vast majority of the time, I'm shooting armor piercing in this ship. Now, obviously, with these, like this replay, what you're seeing is obviously I shot HE at the destroyer here, which again is a no-brainer. But at a max range Amagi, I'm not really going to be relying on my armor piercing to do much. So that's when I'm going to go ahead and utilize the HE. Now, another thing to keep in mind too, later on in this video, coming up to it right here around, I want this Amagi dead so that my North Carolina can theoretically angle towards the Massachusetts and deal with him. So I will be expiring the remainder of my main battery reload booster on this Amagi because I want to set as many fires as possible and burn him down and kill him so that, like I said, my North Carolina can deal with the Massachusetts and angle towards him. That's the only reason I have it running, or will have it running here towards the towards here, or the tail end here. Okay. Another thing you have to keep in mind too is, if you double tap the T key, like sometimes when I pop consumables, I like tap them, right? If you tap, like double tap it like I do, you will actually toggle it on and then immediately toggle it off. Just be wary of that. I've caught myself thinking I popped my main battery reload booster when, matter of fact, I actually didn't. And and it's actually off. So just keep that in mind too. That's kind of like a side little like, tip. If you like to double tap consumables like I do, it could be a problem that you could be facing when you're facing, in the heat of things, like in the thick of things, right? So, I already mentioned about the Citadel and the armor profile of the ship. The Citadel is a little bit of a step. You will get Citadels. It is easy to Citadel this thing through the nose. So if you're an enemy battleship and you see this thing bow tanking you, and given the fact that you have over 380 millimeter guns, so like 406s, right, 410s, higher, just put your cursor right on the nose. There's a good chance you're not only going to do 10,000 damage to the guy, but you're probably going to get a Citadel ribbon and do more. This thing, again, from the nose on profile is not very tanky. And it sucks too, because normally I would say, and I still do, kind of show like 20 to 30 degrees. Don't just go directly nose in. That makes it too easy for a lot of ships. And I still recommend doing that, but the Oregon City class cruisers, just the way that their hull is shaped and the way the way their nose, like how long it is too, man, these things, even if you're angled at those degrees, I can still see battleships with large caliber armor piercing, like chunking me and potentially citadeling me and nuking me through that little bit of an angle that I'm showing under my nose. So just be wary of that too, and just understand when you're fighting this thing, it has a lot of weaknesses, right? The one big weakness it doesn't have is if you decide to go flat broadside to the bastard, you'll probably get nuked, especially if he has his main battery reload booster up. The AP penetration, this is hard-hitting, heavy American armor piercing that is slow, as you can see, so you want to close the distance to some degree and lead the target adequately enough and give yourself enough time to land exactly where you want it to land. This AP slaps. It's a trait that is on the Des Moines, the Buffalo, the Baltimore, so it's going to carry on over here to the Bridgeport, right? But now, because I've expired all my main battery reload booster, you're kind of starting to see how anemic this DPM is once it's gone. This is a situation that I'm trying to show you, learn from my mistakes, so that you don't duplicate this when you go and bring it into battle, right? Some other things about this ship it's worth noting is this ship does not up tier very well, okay? I've played in countless tier 10 games with this thing. They are not fun. I have not had one fun tier 10 game in this thing. Now, granted, that is easy to say in a bottom tiered vessel. So, again, take it with a pinch of salt. But it's not fun, okay? I don't know what it is. Like, I'd rather be in my Baltimore that has a no heal than this fucking thing, okay? But also, the Baltimore has radar. You don't have radar in this thing. I shouldn't have to mention that, but if you can't clearly see from the bottom screen, yes, this ship does not have radar. So, again, it's banking a lot on that main battery reload booster. And for me, the gimmick is a great idea, but the way the Bridgeport wants to play and basically what's installed with, I guess, national flavor, if that's what you want to call it, hard-hitting American armor piercing, 27 millimeters, blah, blah, and so, it just doesn't really do that well. And again, I know there's a lot of other YouTuber and streamers that like this ship, and again, that's awesome, good for you, but from someone who absolutely adores cruisers, solely plays cruisers probably 90-80% of the time, this one's a swing and a miss for me, guys. This one is not a very good ship. And I'm actually going to show you here in about 30 seconds a scenario in which I wish I had my main battery reload booster up, because I probably would have not only gotten, 3 plus potentially more kills, I probably would have gotten around 5 to 6 kills if I would have had it up, right? So, moving into my final thoughts of the USS Bridgeport. If you get this ship for free, it's 100% worth it. Okay? If you're having or finding yourself spending doubloons on this ship, it is 100% not worth it. I will very rarely be playing this ship moving forward unless changes are applied to it, which I don't see Wargaming applying changes. Again, it is a free ship theoretically, and Wargaming is notorious for giving us lackluster free vessels in this game, okay? So that's kind of my big rule of thumb here when it comes to, is this ship worth it or is it not worth it? If it's for free, yes, it's worth it. If you're having to spend doubloons on it, absolutely not worth it. Let this event pass you by, because I'm sure within 3 to 6 months there's going to be something else that's going to be more intriguing to you, okay? Another thing with this ship, I already mentioned it. I'm going to say it again because I cannot stress this enough, guys. Please, please, please manage your main battery reload booster, okay? That situation right there that you just saw expire behind you, If I had my main battery reload booster up, both those DDs would most likely be dead within 15 or 20 seconds, okay? But because I didn't have it up there, I wasn't able to finish off the Cossack. I was able to get the Kagero though, that's good. But again, the Cossack got away. Not well, from me, not from my teammates. But again, both those probably would have been my kills if, you know, if I would have had it up. Again, it's a team game though. Who's really counting, right? Who's keeping score? And then lastly, don't rely on your armor. This thing handles like an absolute truck. You're going to find yourself hugging islands, going nose in, abusing island coverage. You have to. It's absolutely mandatory. Just because you have a 27mm nose, you think, oh, I'm a little bit more armored. That's great. Against cruisers and against 380mm guns. But once you start running into 406s, which is completely common, starting to get into tier 8, 9, and God forbid tier 10, fuck. You're Swiss cheese. You're absolutely Swiss cheese. You will find yourself going back to port so incredibly quickly. And I cannot stress this enough, guys. You cannot rely on this armor. You have to try to abuse island coverage. Pull back behind that island to hide and conceal yourself so you can keep that HP up and survive in game. Okay? As you're going to see, we're moving into the post-battle screen. This is probably my best game I have with the Bridgeport. And if you look at the number value of this, it's like that's not even that good of a game, right? This ship is just not fun for me. I don't really like this ship, and nor can I recommend this ship. I understand the situations it can be good, but not for me, guys. Not worth it, in my opinion. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.